everyone, I'm back again, and these are the tools, or some of them, that I might be using in this demonstration. Let's get on with the show. I partially wet my page with my haki brush, and I'm using my dagger brush loaded with Opera Rose, and I just flick it in gently, leaving a lot of white of the paper showing. This way I can work into the shapes that are left where the white areas are. So the negative spaces are very important to me. I'm adding now a mixture of French ultramarine, sap green, and a little bit of quinacridone gold. And I'm just going around the edges where I can isolate maybe a shape that I could work into a flower. But just watch that you don't leave just lines. See how I'm softening that line, that outer line? And I'm just kind of dancing the brush and loading a little bit of water into it and letting it float a bit away from the image of the flower. I use the drinking straw to blow some of the paint. That gives me some really interesting marks. I'm still using my dagger brush, and I'm just using perhaps a little less water with the mixture, but my blue and my quinacridone gold mixed together make that nice dark. That colour up on the top left is quinacridone gold, and then I merge a little bit of my blue-green mixture into it. And now I'm flicking a little bit of my Opera Rose into that. Don't be afraid of putting a warm over a cool and letting it just all bleed together. Some colours like to settle, they don't spread that well, and some colours are really good at spreading. Learn the properties of each colour you use. Find out what are good staining colours, spreading colours, transparent colours, and sedentary colours. For the centre of the flower I used a little bit of cadmium yellow and a little bit of burnt sienna and Opera Rose. And now I've sped the painting up quite a bit. I'm sorry, I didn't even realise I had done this, and you just have to live with it for a few minutes. But it's basically just getting in the negative painted areas, the background areas of my painting. You'll notice I flick and flop colours over the top of the darks. That pink colour I like to try and keep as a continuous colour coming through my composition. And now I'm back into the actual flower. So I'm trying to just discern one petal against another petal, just slightly. I don't want to make it a botanical study. I want to keep it fairly loose and spontaneous looking, but I do have to just try and make a few separate compartments, separate divisions where one petal meets another. I'm using a little bit of Opera Rose with permanent magenta here, and once again leaving a lot of the white paper still showing. That's why it's important to have that white paper still there. And I just work around my flower. I've done one flower at this stage, but the pinks I've got coming through the rest of my composition quite comfortably, so any of those pink areas could be made into another flower as I go. I'm making this whole composition up. I'm sorry, there's no reference photo, so you have to just trust me on this. This is a Ray Andrews flower, and we just have to go along with what we come up with, okay? At this point, I'm just starting to see another flower appearing. So I start with the center area, the stamen area. That's always a good starting point for me. So I put my little bit of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue into the center with a little bit of Opera Rose. And now I'm working some darks in between where I think two flowers are going to appear. A little bit of negative painting to imply maybe some branches and some twigs into the background to give some linear details as well. Doesn't have to be anything in particular, but any line work that you imply is going to help lead the eye through the composition, and that's good. That you want to create movement and action, some sort of intrigue for your viewer. So I'm gradually building up my darks in places in the background so that the degree of water that I put with my paint is less, and that makes my paint a little bit more of an impact, so the colours get tonally a little bit darker. I've been switching between my dagger brush and my little round brush, both of which are made by Silver Black Velvet, and my dagger brush is a 3/8 of an inch, and my little round brush is a number 8, and I use those probably mostly in my paintings. Once again, the less you put into your painting in this particular way of painting, this technique that I use, the better. So a lot of it's left to the imagination. Your viewer can easily discern that this is a flower, and once they identify one flower, they're going to start seeing others appear, even flowers that you didn't put there. So the center of the areas of the flowers are the most important. Now here I'm making a huge mistake. I don't even know what I was thinking. I started to put a stamen in between the two flowers. You see that? That shouldn't be there, and I'm going to have to take it out. So it's a valid mistake. It's good that you see that I make mistakes and how I try to redeem it. I think I redeem it in the end of this painting, but you can be the deciding factor on that. I've removed the brown I put there. You'll see that. Now I'm putting in a little bit of the pink colours to make it really quite a division between the two flowers. So I took out what that additional stamen accent did, and the colours that I used were not staining, so I could remove them just with a damp brush and blotting them with a tissue. That's why it's good to know the properties of your colours. Now I'm once again trying to give the viewer perhaps just a slight demarcation between petals. Not every petal, because this is kind of a made-up flower anyway, but a little bit in between. And when you take out a little bit of the paint with your thirsty brush technique, you can back it up with just a little bit of paint behind that area, so it makes it jump forward. Contrast is what makes something pop. See, I'm taking out the paint there, and in places all through the flowers I will do that. Even at the end of this painting I'll still do that. Back to working on the background. Now I'm putting additional things into that stamen area that I really needed to put in. Back to doing my background area. I'm all over the place like a mad woman's breakfast, but here I go again. Now I'm adding another flower. That bottom corner was a little naked, and it made my other two flowers kind of float. So I want to anchor the painting a little bit. So I've applied a little bit of pink into that bottom right-hand corner, and now I'm coming in behind that to push it forward, using the drinking straw again to blow and make some interesting marks. And here's my little stamen area. That's with burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. I like to sometimes make the corners a little bit deeper in value to push the eye back into the center of the picture. So that's why I did that blue in the bottom right-hand corner. Now I'm almost at the end of my painting, and I'm using a thirsty brush, a tissue, and I'm blotting to make the edges of petals stand out more. They don't have to be white, but I do want to see some sort of demarcation. And remember, that's where I made another stamen in that area, and it was a little bit of a mistake. So I had to make my paint fairly dark between those two flowers. So I just want to get a little bit more identifying petals going. And I think I'm going to also use a little bit of white gouache with my Opera Rose paint, just to make a couple little accent colours, but you'll see me do that in a minute. Still using my little scrubber brush now. This is a very stiff little bristle brush, and I just can, over dry paint, once the painting's dry, I can lift out and scrub the paint a little bit and then blot it. So it gets me almost back to white. And as I said before, now I'm starting to back up what I just took out. So behind that area, I put a little bit more of a value change, just so that it makes those areas stand out. Okay, so now I'm using a little bit of white gouache with Opera Rose, and I'm just adding a couple of little tips of that lighter value to some of the edges of my petals. So now it's time to sign the painting, and we finished another one. So I hope you enjoyed this demo, and please subscribe and leave comments. I love hearing some feedback on some of these. I'm getting a little better than I was right at the beginning as far as making these videos go, and I appreciate your support. So bye bye for now, and I hope to see you again. Thanks for watching.